Bhuvneshwar Kumar often opens spells with 2 outswingers and then an in-swinger. And I don't know why I know this, but I do know why I noticed this. This isn't normal. It's hard to swing the ball both ways for seamers. On top of that, to perfect it with the new white ball is even harder. And to swap between them, just as hard. This is next level video game skill. And because of things like this, Bhuvi is one of the more interesting bowlers in T20 because his main skill isn't speed, height or slower ball. His main skill is skill, and it's done pretty well for him so far. At the moment, he has bowled the 6th most deliveries in the IPL. Actually, let's just take out those spinners. He has the most deliveries of any seamer in the IPL, though he and Dwayne Bravo are not that far apart. You don't get to bowl all those balls without actually being very good. And he has the 10th best bowling average of any quick. And many of the players who have a better bowling average are death wicket specialists. But his best skill is his lack of being hit off the square. In fact, it's beating the bat, which is why he has a 45% dot ball percentage. But he's also just the 3rd best when it comes to economy for pace bowlers all time in the IPL. But when you slap up the big board, you get a real idea of where Bhuvi is. This bloke over here is Jasprit Bumrah, and this fella, he's Dale Steyn. And in the middle of them, it's Bhuvi, an all-time great IPL bowler. But he was not that good last year. I mean, he just really wasn't. Guess which dot he is? He had a middling to okay economy, but quite high for him. But look at him up here on his own. I don't even know why. But after years of consistently being good, his bowling was terrible. Now, the Sunrisers were a bit of a clusterfuck. But that shouldn't affect his ability to take any wickets at all. He was the only seamer with over 200 deliveries who took less than 10 wickets. He took 6. If you compare it to his other seasons, it feels like we just put up a lesser bowler's figures here as a bit of a gag. It was so bad that people were starting to assume that he was on his downward slope, but that he was over. But of course, this is Bhuvi over the first month of this year, and that looks a lot better, right? In fact, I only needed to see him in his 2nd game, and I was pretty sure that this was the old Bhuvi. So I tweeted this gif on his behalf. Now, there is a reason his form could have dipped in 2021, because during the previous season he was injured with a thigh muscle strain, a bad one at that, so it does make sense he would have struggled in 2021. Except that's not exactly what happened. You can see just here by the wickets, he took some in his first game back, had a lower spot, but then this series here, this is when he tormented England with some of the best bowling I've seen in T20s. His 2 for 15 in 4 overs in a match where there were 400 runs scored is still one of the best performances I've ever seen in T20 cricket. Oh, and those 2 wickets, Jason Roy and Josh Butler. No, there was not a problem with his form. And a month later he hit the IPL and you can see the wickets just dry up. And the economy also gets messy here as well. Then the IPL was postponed for COVID. He went and played Sri Lanka, takes a load more wickets, everything is great, comes back to the IPL and doesn't take any wickets again. He took 5 wickets in 3 matches against Sri Lanka, and 6 wickets in 11 for the Sunrisers. I'm sure the injury played a part, but it was so odd, because it wasn't a consistent problem. That series against England was as high quality as the IPL, and on incredibly flat batting pitches, and England almost abandoned trying to hit him. But by the World Cup 6 months later, he was so out of favour that he bowled only once against Pakistan and didn't play again. And it is hard to know how much of this was injury or form made by injuries, or injuries involved with form. I've gone down a rabbit hole there. But once a player who is not 90 miles an hour shows any sign of weakness, people start to say that they have lost their nip, or that magical yard. Here is Ashish Nira saying it about Bhuvi just before that World Cup. The lack of pace is worth discussing further. Do you remember when Bhuvi was one of the best test bowlers in the world? In fact, back when that was happening, people weren't really talking up his T20 and one-day bowling that much. He just looked like such a highly skilled test bowler, and he wasn't alone. In his era, there were a bunch of really top skillful, fast medium, or even slower than that bowlers. Mohammad Abbas, Vernon Philander, Jimmy Anderson, and even Josh Hazlewood. At that point, only Bhuvi of this group could pull off an above average T20 career on the side. And since then, only Hazlewood, who is the fastest and tallest of this group, has had a T20 career. Bhuvi's type of bowler is not usually successful in T20s, but he's not been completely on his own. Of recent times, we've seen Peter Siddle, who's been an incredible story. Like Hazlewood, he didn't play that much T20 early on. As his Australian career was winding down, Peter Siddle learned how to play T20. And a bit like Bhuvi, he used his wits and skills to build a career. The difference is that Siddle was an experienced bowler working it out at the end. Bhuvi's been a force in the IPL for over a decade in the hardest league in the world. In fact, he's been around so long that you could see patterns with his bowling that you don't see with some other players. Like the fact that teams started playing him differently in the power play. They really haven't changed how fast they score off him, but clearly they've stopped taking as many risks. I love this. The idea that he was too powerful at the top is so cool. And you do see these kinds of patterns sometimes with players like Sunil Narine and Rashid Khan as well. Generally, the elite bowlers. But it's worth showing just how much better he is than IPL average when it comes to economy in each power play. Some years it's by miles. 2018 was quite the year. Everyone was attacking up the top, scoring at 8.3 runs and over. And Bhuvi went at less than a run a ball. He's certainly not one of the greatest all-time death bowlers, or at the very least that's not the story about him. But he's certainly been one of the best for a very long time. And he has been tested year after year and he's kept bouncing back. He has a career economy of under 9 in the last 6 overs of IPL games. And to prove the point, it's worth looking at where he is on this compared to Jasprit Bumrah. And because of these numbers, he obviously has had a lot of very good years at the death. And this year is certainly looking like one of his better seasons so far. Last year though, well, that is not so good. It was really not so good. It was bad. But this season he's just had an incredible start. There's no doubt that he's one of the best few pace bowlers going around at the moment. A year after it looked like he was finished. And I think with bowlers of Bhuvi's pace, we're always looking for the physical signs that they are finished. But I think what his story shows is that when you have a brain this good that has managed to dominate at the IPL for this many years, it's probably worth waiting to see if that body might bounce back a little bit. And the answer for this year is it has. It's very fair to look at his form in the last 2 years and say that it has swung in both directions a long way.